Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing well. So I just wanted to do a quick video today on using your ears for hunting. I think maybe it's something that goes overlooked, and definitely something that I picked up on over the years um, during the time that I spent in the woods hunting. And I was surprised how much I heard when I just stopped and I listened, right? And it did give me a couple opportunities at deer over the years that maybe I wouldn't have got had I just been trampling through the woods, being fairly loud and not taking the time to stop and listen and get a heads up that there might be an animal nearby me. So anyways, I think a good place to start would be deer are kind of like stop, look, listen, wait, and move type animals, right? They're prey animals, so they don't want to get eaten. And when you're still hunting through the woods, it's really important, even when you think you're being as quiet as you possibly can, you're still making some noise no matter how hard you try. So it's good to take 2 or 3 very slow, well thought out steps, but stop and listen. And don't just listen for like 2 seconds, listen for like 30 seconds and scan. Try not to move your head, just move your eyes and just listen. And then take a couple more steps again and stop and listen. Because what could very well happen is if you're near a deer and you don't pick up on it, but it sees you or senses you nearby, it's going to stop. It's going to look in the direction it thinks that you are, and it's going to listen. Now, if you don't make any noise and it decides not to freak out and bust out of there, after a certain amount of time of it being alerted, and if it deems you not a threat or there's no threat near them in the area, they're just going to continue on their way. And as soon as they make those first few steps, they can make noise, right? So if they step on a little stick or a pine cone or something, and you've stopped moving yourself and you're on alert, as soon as you hear that little noise after a couple of minutes of not moving, that's a good indication that there could be a deer over there. And you should then set your sights on that area, make sure the wind's in your favor, and proceed to still hunt over there. Because there's a very good chance that that was a deer that had stopped and waited and froze to see what you were or what they thought happened over in your direction. And if everything's cool and they want to go on their way, they're going to start moving, right? So just be quiet when you're moving through the woods and stop and wait. I can't stress that enough. Like a minute of standing there waiting and listening is not that much time, but it'll give you the opportunity to wait out potentially a deer and see if they make a noise. Now, during the rut, this has happened to me a couple of times as well. You can't underestimate a buck that's all rutted up, right? He's not thinking clearly and he's moving way faster through the woods than he should. And it's happened a couple of times, even with small bucks. I'll be still hunting and doing my very slow couple steps, stop, freeze, look, listen, assess. And then all of a sudden you hear something coming around the corner, coming up over the knob, coming through the bush, and it's a buck. And he's so rutted up, he's looking for a doe, and he's not being quiet at all. And you hear that deer coming, and that's like a gimme. That's like a no-brainer. When you hear something coming, trampling through the woods like that, in your direction, like you best get ready, get your rifle off your shoulder, because you just never know. Could be the buck of your dreams just walks right out in front of you and just stands there and looks at you and keeps moving, right? So if you hear something coming, maybe if you're new to hunting, it happened to me a couple times where I heard something smashing through the woods very close to me in November. And I don't know, just being a new hunter and by yourself out in the woods, you don't really know what it is. So you kind of freeze and you just want to see because you're not sure what's happening. But, I bet you 9 times out of 10, that's a deer, man. He's just like cruising through the woods full steam, breaking through the crunchy ice and snow, looking for does. So, man, you don't want to miss that opportunity because that's, like I said, that's a chip shot. If he comes crashing through the woods and gives you that indication that he's coming, get your rifle ready. Who knows? Maybe it's a doe, but maybe it's a buck too. And you just want to be ready to roll when you lay eyes on that deer. Also, if you're still hunting through the woods and you get busted by a doe, and this happens, they'll just remember during the rut in November, you're looking for groups of deer, right? Because if you find some does, there's a solid chance that there's a buck with them, right? Just hanging out, waiting for his opportunity. So if you're still hunting through the woods, and this does happen fairly often, if a doe or two see you before you see them, they'll start blowing through their muzzle and stomping their front feet. And that's an alert signal that they've seen you, they're concerned about you, they don't know what you are. So they're trying to alert the rest of the deer in the nearby area that you're there and they should be, on alert as well. So when that happens, as soon as I hear that blowing noise, and it could happen right beside you like it did this season to me, or it could happen a little ways off in the distance, stop moving and just look. Because just because that one doe is blowing at you, that doesn't mean that there's a buck with like in sight near her that's just looking at her wondering what she's blowing at. Or maybe he looks over in your direction, but he's not alerted and freaking out yet, right? So just because you hear that blowing alert noise that the deer will make, don't freak out and throw in the towel. Just stop and look and first try to see that deer that's making that blowing noise, and then start scanning around them, because man, you could just as easily have one deer in a group of like half a dozen deer blowing at you, and then there's like 2 or 3 bucks standing around that deer just wondering what's happening, right? So don't freak out, don't run away, just freeze and scan. You never know, you might get lucky and lay your eyes on a deer that hasn't noticed it yet. Also, you want to listen to the other animals in the woods, right? So squirrels are a great example. When you're still hunting through the woods, you're going to hear these squirrels. Drives me nuts, but they're chirping at you and barking at you, and they don't want you near their tree. That's their territory. And yeah, they're going to do everything they can to let you and everything else in the near vicinity know that you're not welcome. And that drives me nuts when that happens. So there's not much you can do about it, I don't think, except just try to move on and have that squirrel shut up. But you got to remember, squirrels don't just bark and chirp at humans. They're doing that to any big animal that's in the woods, right? So if you're still hunting through the woods and you hear a squirrel going nuts off in the distance, stop and think about it. Like, there very well could be some deer near that squirrel's tree, and he doesn't like that, and he's chirping and barking at them at the top of his lungs, trying to tell them to beat it. But that gives you a cue that maybe there's deer over there, and you should probably start thinking about making sure the wind's in your favor, circle around to whatever angle you got to do it, and then start still hunting into where that squirrel's freaking out, and just very slow steps, and you're just peering through the bushes, peering between the branches, peering into the openings. And you never know, again, you could get lucky and there's a big buck standing there with that squirrel chirping at him. And I'd say maybe, the last thing would be pay attention to the birds. I mean, this is a visual thing as well, but if you see ravens up in a tree, or eagles as well, you can hear them. Like, they'll be cawing and chirping like eagles do. And if you hear that, try to look and see if you can find the tree where all the birds are. And chances are they're there for a reason. And it's probably because there's like a deer kill or something below that tree. If you're predator hunting, that's a good opportunity. You could have a wolf kill over there. You could have a cougar. Could be some coyotes. Could be anything. And you don't know how fresh that kill is. That fresh, maybe those birds been hanging out there for a couple days. But I think those scavengers go through those kills pretty quick with like the guts and that sort of thing, and picking the skeleton clean. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that if you hear birds, concentration of birds, see them up in a tree, if you play the wind right, get it in your favor, make sure, and then still hunt your way into where you think, like below where those birds are, there could very well be a kill, and there could very well be a predator on that kill. And that's exactly what happened to me a couple years ago. I was actually had, in 2 days of hunting, I had 2 wolf encounters. So I guess I'll tell you in order. The first one, I was hiking up way up a valley and up into some cliffy bluffs. I spent the whole day up there. And as I was hiking down the game trail, it was a heavy game trail. And I hadn't seen any bucks that day. I just saw a few does. And, you're pretty tired and worn out by the time you get down out of all that, and I had to get into the valley and then just follow the valley all the way back out to my truck. And it was going to be quite a trek, and it was pretty late in the day. I was coming down this game trail, like right where a couple of them converged as well, and I knew it was like a high probability area. And man, as soon as I turned that corner, I heard something running towards me up that game trail, and I thought for sure it was going to be a buck. It was just coming full speed up that trail, and I could hear it like thud, 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 thud for like a couple seconds. And out of nowhere, this big gray and brown wolf just ran like right up to my feet. Like, it was crazy. I heard him coming, and I kind of froze. I was kind of caught off guard, right? It happened so fast, I didn't really get my rifle off my shoulder. And I'm not even joking. He was probably about 10 yards in front of me with his nose to the ground. He was chasing deer scent up that trail for sure, and just ran face first right into me. And yeah, I didn't take him. I thought about it, and he kind of got a little, saw me and sort of froze and started kind of zigzagging back and forth. And I was getting the rifle off my shoulder, and then he just kind of darted into the undergrowth, and I just couldn't get a good shot. You know, it all happened so fast. And then I kept taking a few more steps. And what I didn't know at the time was that there was a pack of wolves there. And like 10 more steps, and all of a sudden this like pack of wolves just lit up and started howling all around me. And I'll tell you, the hair on the back of my neck stood up instantly. I had my 243. I think I only had 4 in the magazine. I didn't have any other spare ammo in my backpack. And that was something else. I learned to carry more rounds just for a situation like that. But man, those wolves were like, they didn't take off. They actually like followed me and howled me out of their kind of territory. And I've got a video of me like walking backwards with my cell phone up recording. You can hear all these wolves howling like super close to me as I'm speed walking out of here as like the sun's going down. So that was interesting. I heard that wolf coming, and it very well could have been a buck, but it wasn't. And then I had to go to work the next day. And then the day after that, I was up in a different zone, and I hiked way up into a burn, and I was hiking through some cliffy, bluffy stuff. And then I got to the top, and just like I was saying with the birds, I could see off in the distance, I could see a bunch of ravens, and they're sort of swooping, but not going to the ground. They were swooping, dipping, and just kind of staying up in the boughs of this big old growth tree. And I was maybe 150 yards away, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. There's probably something dead over there. And I just kept sitting there listening, and I could hear them going nuts. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, the reason they're not landing on the ground is because it's a fresh kill, and whatever killed the kill is still on it, eating it. And then my adrenaline went through the roof. I was like, no way. So then I made sure I had the wind right, and I crept in, and it got pretty open, so I had a hard time like sneaking up. But I got within 60 yards of this tree with all these crows or ravens going crazy. And I saw 2 wolves. Maybe there was more, but I saw 2. And one was like beige, like a golden retriever. And the other one was another gray and brown wolf. And it was really far away from the encounter I had a couple days before that. So it wasn't the same pack of wolves. And oh man, I thought I was going to get the job done. I got 60 yards. I got my rifle up, and I put my crosshairs on the kind of the beige tan one. And as soon as I did that, it's like he sensed me, man. He turned around, looked right in my direction. Maybe the wind swirled or something, but he started moving. And even at that distance, it was hard for me to like keep my crosshairs on him. He knew something was up, and he just started going back and forth, back and forth. And he started going up to just up into the timber and out of sight. And I was kind of choked because I was looking around and I didn't see the other wolf. But then by the time that beige wolf had taken off out of sight, all of a sudden I caught movement down by the carcass. And it was this gray and brown wolf. He was so camouflaged, I couldn't see him. And he just followed that other wolf up and did the exact same thing. And he wouldn't stay still for me to put my crosshairs on him. And yeah, I hiked in, and sure enough, there's this doe fresh, just torn apart. So those birds, hearing those birds and then cueing me to look over in that direction, at least gave me that opportunity to get on that kill and potentially have harvested a wolf or 2 if I was a bit quicker to the draw. Another time that noise helped me out was that in that last video I was talking about that buck that was too close to me and I had too much magnification in my scope. I heard him coming, and like, again, he was rutted up even for a little guy, but he was coming up the side of this knob in the bluffs. And I had all the time in the world to get my rifle up, and as soon as he popped out, he was just too close and I had too much magnification. I couldn't really pick him up. But the point is, I heard him coming, right? So I mean, if I was moving and breaking sticks and making noise, maybe I would have heard him, maybe I wouldn't have. But if a buck's rutted up, man, like he's moving. So if you hear something, freeze and get ready for it, because he could pop out at any moment. And even this year, that last 2-point I took, I heard him, and he was doing the exact thing I was just talking about, where he was frozen and waiting. And as soon as he made a move, I heard him, and he alerted me to his presence. And I looked over my right shoulder after I heard that stick snap, and there he was, broadside. And then, he made a bit of a turn, started walking away, and ended up taking the shot as he was sort of quartering away from me. But man, like, if he hadn't have broke that stick and made a move, I would have just walked right by him, just like that other buck I did in the rain, like that torrential downpour little video I got. It was crazy. Like, that buck was like 10 feet beside me in the pouring rain, in the dark. And if he hadn't, like, he didn't make a noise, and I walked right by him, it blew my mind. But he ultimately freaked out and started blowing real loud and whatever. He busted out of there. But it's a waiting game sometimes. Like if you're still hunting, if you're moving too quick, you're just blowing by those deer and they're looking at you. So if you can just stop, freeze, hopefully they don't see you or smell you, but maybe if they do, you don't come across as a threat or intimidating, and they make the first move. And if they step on a pine cone on that first couple steps, that just locks you right in. You just got to zone in on that area or focus in on that area. And if there's a deer, decide if you're going to harvest it or not. But yeah, I can't tell you how useful it is to use your ears. Like, it's actually, I have definitely heard more deer and ended up harvesting them than I have seen them and then, harvested them. So, yeah, the quieter you are, like, just listen to those animals that are out there. They'll tell you what's happening around you. Yeah, that's really it. But yeah, just keep your ears open. You got to use all your senses. You got to be looking for movement. You got to be listening for the smallest noises. Yeah, I think that's really all I have for listening better while you're out still hunting. But if you guys have any other suggestions, yeah, I'm open to it. I would love to get some tips myself. So again, if you've got experience and you've got other tips and advice, I'd love to hear all about it and can share it with the other viewers. And yeah, that's it. Have a great day.